Check. Good. So I'm Max Ceron. Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding Podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding Podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association Podcast. My name is Max Ceron and we are here in Fabtech in sunny Orlando. We're at 32 degrees today, Celsius. We are nice and hot, and I am sweating because I love the heat, and it's all good. Today, we're going to have our kickoff interview with Aaron Brandt here, President and COO of Hypertherm, and we're going to get rolling. So, Aaron, how's it going, man?
It's going great. Thanks for having me, Max.
When did you get in?
I got in last night. So there was a GATA event, so a gas and welding distributor event over the weekend in Phoenix. So I actually came to Florida to get away from the heat. Yeah, it was.
Was it hotter there than here?
Yeah, I'm going to convert for you. It's around 40.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'd love it.
Quite warm.
She wouldn't, but no.
But yeah, got in late last night and ready to go. Yeah.
So you got two booths here. I've been looking at the show. What's your first impressions of Orlando as a new spot for Fabtech?
Yeah, I've never been here for an event before of any sort. So it's interesting. It's great to see an industry event in Florida and kind of see what kind of crowds we're going to get. I mean, the venue itself is great.
It's huge.
It's really good. It's really good. It's unfortunate thing is this. It's really spread out as well.
There's a lot of walking.
I was at our other booth earlier this morning. And it's about a 15-minute walk outdoors to get back here, and wearing a suit. That's ideal for that. But yeah, lovely venue, and hopefully we get the crowds. I mean, obviously the hurricane last week created a damper for a lot of people on prep and getting here, and luckily that storm, while there was a decent amount of tragedy from it, wasn't as bad as some of the predictions. So
at the coast too, because we're more central here, right? So there's a little bit safer.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you're talking about the two booths. So what kind of footprint do you have here at Hypertherm?
Yeah, so we have our larger booth in the forming and fabricating hall. So I'm not quite sure the sizes, but that's where we have a lot of our automated products, our heavy industrial plasma equipment, our WaterJet product line as well. The OMAX product line is there. Then the welding booth is where that's where a lot of our handheld
for the plasmas and stuff.
Plasma light automation really fits in. Is generally part of welding value streams. So that's where we like to at least have a reasonable size contact booth and a good crew manning both sides.
You brought up the hurricane, which is going to be a theme for the week.
For sure.
And I was thinking back to the COVID Chicago Fabtech. Have you been coming to lots of Fabtechs for a while?
Yes.
And I remember the sentiment going into that 2019 Chicago show, and it was kind of scary, right? Because the world's shut down, but we're going to try to keep the show running. And it was quite a bit scaled back. But the sentiment when the show was done was that the people that came for a purpose. And I have that kind of feeling for this. Like, I mean, I wouldn't try to compare tragedies. It isn't really the game, but the hesitancy of some of the people on the fence with the hurricane may have kept them home, but the ones that got on the planes, they're here to do business, right? And are you hoping to have kind of that same engagement from the audience?
Yeah, I think so. I think you see that in any time there's always something going on around the globe, right? Whether geopolitical disruption, and there's too many of those, COVID, you name it. I remember the industrial cycle of 2008 and 2009, and being at the Fabtech in Chicago after that, and it wasn't heavily populated. There wasn't a lot of people there, but those of us that were there, same thing. That sort of, and that's what's great about our industry, right? It's that resilient North American point of view, really optimistic.
Business has got to keep moving.
We're going to keep grinding and driving it forward, and that's what's great about the companies here and our industry in general.
Something that I saw interesting in your profile is the amount of time you've been with Hypertherm. Like you're talking about
26 years.
Yeah, so that's not common for our generation. I'm probably older than you, but Gen X down, that's not a common thing. It's kind of a boomer thing to be with a company for so long. What is it that has kept you at Hypertherm for 26 years? Because, you've stepped through a number of roles over these 26 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, and, I'll take being compared to a boomer as a compliment on the side there, but I did just turn 50 this year, but...
we're almost exactly the same age.
Yeah. So, it's interesting, and it wasn't the plan. So when I joined Hypertherm and I started in R&D, and I've never lived in New England before. Our headquarters is in Hanover, New Hampshire, about 2 hours north of Boston. And, I thought, well, yeah, this seems like an interesting company. We were maybe 300 to 350. We call them associates, but employees at the time. And thought, give it a try for 3-4 years and then on to the next gig. And then life happens. And, we'll walk through it. But it's a combination of just a love of the industry,
right?
Really love the products and technology, and but it's culture that keeps you somewhere. And so for me, that the culture of Hypertherm, just being on a really strong growth ride with them over the years, and just we'll talk about associate ownership maybe, but there's something about that that's just very special to me, and that's what's kept me there for 26 years.
Well, over the years I've met many people from Hypertherm, and many have the same story of being there multiple years and even progressing, having a pathway through the company from role X to role Y, which is not clearly defined in most companies. It's kind of a pinch point or kind of an area of contention. Is you hire me for X job, but I have ambitions. How do I get to the C-suite in 20 years? Most companies don't even entertain kind of that mentality,
right?
But it seems to happen at Hypertherm.
It does, and it's interesting. We just celebrated every year. We have what we call our 25-year club, and it's the people that have been there 25 years or longer. There's 110 people in that club.
That's wild
at our company. Which
I have never worked for a company more than 10 years.
Yeah, so and it's one of those things where life goes incredibly quickly, but it's just great to see that dedication. And I think it's a combination of things. I think for Hypertherm, and this gets to culture, where there's a couple founding principles for us around respect for the individual, really treating people well. There's a lot of Deming principles in sort of, our founder was a big fan of Deming. And so a lot of his drive fear out of the workplace, really let the people that are close to the work make the decisions because they know best.
That's right.
And really get total participation and involvement to drive things forward. But also always being humble and always knowing that, hey, if we can do something, I think we have a lot of smart people in our organization, but there's a lot of smart people in the industry.
Right.
So someone else can do it too. So always trying to drive it forward. And so you've got that. And then also this spirit of, just continual growth and renewal. And that's why, we talk a lot about growth. You'll hear often
financially, right?
You'll hear CEOs of any company talking about growth. And for us, it's not about hitting a target number, but it's creating sort of a dynamic, sort of engaging culture and climate where people feel there's an up motivation. And if it hadn't been for that growth, I probably wouldn't have been there 26 years, because when I was always gunning for that next role, and I was always very comfortable talking to my boss at the time, just when he said, hey, what's next?
What's next
for you? And I'm like, I'm really looking at your job. It looks pretty nice. And every boss I had to a T was always 100% comfortable with that conversation and just very encouraging. And so just really continuing to invest in that culture and keep it dynamic so people feel, we'd love people to stay a long time. So the more, the better.
So you came on as a young man as a mechanical engineer.
Yeah. So I went to Penn State University.
Okay.
I did my graduate research on laser cutting, actually.
Back then. Which was not like now.
Not like now. And so it was inert gas laser cutting was the foundation of my research, looking at, pressure impacts on cutting. And, now today, high pressure nitrogen cutting is the dominant way you do it. Yeah. And so that's where I kind of got a lot of my founding. And at the time, Hypertherm sponsored research in the same lab that I worked in. And I didn't work on that project. I was on the laser one. But met a couple of the engineers as they were visiting, and they said, hey, come up, check us out.
This is pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, so I said, great, yeah, I'll check you out. And so started in R&D and did that for quite a few years. Probably the first 5 years of my career there was as a practicing engineer, just sort of working in the lab, working on new cutting technology, torches, consumables, cutting process. How do I cut it? Thicker, faster, better,
cleaner,
better operating costs, you know it. And just got to travel the world, we're a global
company. You guys are everywhere.
We're global. Over half of our revenue, or roughly half our revenue, is outside of North America. And, the business I was working in was about 80% international at the time, because you had the BRIC countries really building up strongly, Brazil, Russia, India, China. So I spent a lot of time in Asia and just having a blast doing it. But for me, that the intersection of technology and people has always been the passion. And so getting into leadership was kind of a natural role. So moved in next to engineering leadership. So ran
for your team.
For the team. And I was on what we call the mechanized systems team. So the products we sell in that people would maybe know are the HPR, high performance line, XPR as well. And so I worked on the HPR 130, which was the original high performance product at the time.
It was a little flagship.
Yeah, the 130 amp oxygen process was the last one I worked on personally, so I'm pretty proud of that. And then I had a goal to get into business management, and so at the time,
did you go back to school? Or?
I ended up taking some. I didn't get an MBA, but I ended up taking a bunch of targeted marketing courses, business management courses, just to round out the skill set.
Yeah,
and the rest was on the job. Ended up taking over our mechanized division as general manager, which is our largest, and did that for about 5 years. And that was, I took over the year 2009. So it was right after the crash, 2008, 9. And we can talk about that.
Yeah. Here's the keys to the car with no tires.
That was an experience for sure. But you get to show great year-over-year growth. If you take, it's all about
starting at the bottom,
starting the baseline.
Yeah.
And then joined our senior management team about 10 years ago, and held sort of a mix of roles. Always responsible for our research and development teams, our technology teams, but then also general business management. So I've worked with our software divisions, the last year before moving into my current role and being on the CEO succession track was our WaterJet OMAX division, which is headquartered in Seattle.
Yeah, the college I taught at before coming here, we had just bought the brand new six-axis OMAX. It's a nice machine.
Oh,
it works pretty good.
Excellent. Good. Great to hear it.
But let's go back to the mechanical engineer, because I worked with a lot of engineers. We support engineering heavily through the CWB. And I've learned that engineers in their youth, as they come out of the engineering world into their first jobs, are pretty altruistic. They got a lot of dreams about, developing and working on projects to do the next great thing and involve themselves into big projects and big things, right? How did you find that wide focus and narrow it into one company where, they say you're going to be working on the 130A or this?
Yep.
Didn't you ever get the desire to be, what's out there bigger or wider, or was there enough there? Because Hypertherm has that connection, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I started with engineering, started for me with a love of math and science, right? Which I think a lot of engineers come to it with, just experiences in high school, being encouraged to take more and more advanced coursework. And then, I went to a very small high school. And so I went to Penn State because I was looking for something very different, 40,000 undergrad students. Yeah. And there I started out in aerospace engineering because I had this dream of, maybe being
spaceships.
We grew up in the space shuttle generation, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So that was a dream for sure. And then I remember in year one, meeting some people and talking about, because I was, you're young and you don't really understand career movement or what you're picking.
Or even what's available.
Absolutely. All I had was eye on one thing. And, really learning that, okay, that's a tough path. And, you can get there multiple ways. But for me, going into mechanical was a way to really hold on to that fluid dynamics and thermal dynamics, which I really love, but also not be pigeonholed by it. So mechanical engineering for me is one of the broadest disciplines, so you can really go anywhere with it. And so that was the reason for mechanical. And then, I think you're right. I think everyone wants to change the world and leave it for the better and have a strong impact. And, for me, coming out of school, it was like, hey, I've got student loans. What I really care about right now is a paycheck. So I need to eat.
Which is valid.
Right. And so it was getting into that. And that actually, it was, serendipities played a role so much in my life. And I think I think people have to be humble in the fact that, hard work does get you somewhere, but you rely on a little bit of luck and goodwill and serendipity. And the college professor I met in an undergraduate course I just happened to take and really love, and striking it up with him. And then I ended up working in his lab. Perfect. And that led me to Hypertherm. And these events, you put yourself in the right position, but it's, you stand on other shoulders, and that's why it's all, that's why you give it back, right? And you help others get there. But, getting to Hypertherm and meeting the people there, and we've always had, people often talk about a triple bottom line impact around, hey, it's not just about driving profits. It's also the people that you're working with and the communities that you're serving in, and then the planet, right, that we all have to share and enjoy. And for us, and this is what really resonated with me and felt about, hey, I can make a huge impact in a small company and really have and also be maybe a great example for other companies to take. And
by small companies, small number of employees, but a huge footprint.
That's right. We have today we're about 2,000 employees, and very 92 countries, and we're all over the globe, a lot of offices. So it was small company, but a lot of international impact, and you could really feel like I had a direct connection between what I was working on one day, and then visiting.
It wasn't abstract.
Visiting
right?
Hyundai Heavy Industries in Korea, which is the world's largest shipyard. They have 40,000 employees, and they launch a ship a day. A ship a week.
Ship a week. And here it takes like 5 years to build one.
Something. Yeah, I mean, we're improving, but we're trying to get better. But so you could see a direct connection between the work you did, but then also that broader connection of really building something great for people as well.
And then in terms of like when you got into the company, you talked about you had sort of a mentorship through your college. And I've always harped on how important mentorship is. Yeah. And sometimes you don't even know you're being mentored until after you've been mentored. And you're like, wow, that was a lot more useful than I thought. When you got into Hypertherm, I feel like you kind of had that same connection.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you valued that serendipity that you called it. Now, do you find that you were looking for that in the workplace as well, and they have it for you?
Yeah, I'd love to say I was intentional about it, but I was young and didn't really know, and so I was lucky, honestly. And I think that's for people listening, especially people maybe going into college and thinking about a career in engineering or anything in the skilled industry. Just be open to it is what I would say. Is people love, if you're asking someone to share their knowledge, you're asking them to tell them about themselves, and people love to do that, right?
They do.
And people will give you more of their time than you even would expect that they would. And I've been blessed with that throughout my career, and certainly early on. And that happened to me in college without even looking for it. And then joining Hypertherm, a lot of it came from my direct bosses just being willing to spend so much time helping me and driving. And I think a lot of it too is just not only being open to that, but also being willing to, work really darn hard to make an impact and say, hey, I want to do amazing work for you, and I really want to grind this out, and I want to do strong things, and I want to be forward leaning. And the best way to get ahead is to do an amazing job in the job that you're in, right? And so if you show that sort of forward leaning and then ask for help, that's a powerful combination and really helps.
It's kind of like that dress for the job you want kind of attitude, right?
Yeah, but don't get too far ahead, right? Because I think people
you can't skip steps.
People often stumble when they're trying to do the next job before they've nailed their first. And it doesn't mean don't be ambitious and don't try and be aggressive, but also,
be patient.
People are going to seek you out. They're going to know the ones that are having an impact, and then you're going to get invited onto the right projects and the right stuff.
I say that to lots of young people. I haven't applied for a job in 20 years. You just work hard, do really well, and people find you.
Right.
People will come and get you, and then you just don't say no to opportunity, right? Like if the opportunity knocks, don't sit on that too long because it'll move on. Right?
Yeah, and you can keep your head up a little bit and say, and you know where the action is in the company, and the big projects that are getting the attention. And
like, ooh, I want to be over there.
Try and get over there. Yeah. I want to. How do I help them out? So, that's part of what you need to do.
Now, what's been some of the biggest changes? Like in 26 years, you see a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And there's got to be significant changes in the organization. Like you said, the underlying motto, belief, pillars are kind of the same since then, but there's got to be things that have shifted, ebbed and flowed through your career.
Absolutely, yeah. So when I joined, and we're a company that was founded by an entrepreneur, 1968 in a 2-car garage. We got a picture of the garage on the wall. It's a standard story. Dick Couch. It was, and when I joined, he was still very, very involved in the company. He was CEO and president and leading the organization and heavily involved. He's an engineer as well. And so very involved on the R&D side. So I got to spend quite a bit of time with him. Which
is cool. Not too many people get to do that.
Yeah,
spend time with the CEO.
Absolutely.
Right?
That kind of access is amazing. And just, and I think him and his wife, Barbara, who was also involved in the organization, just had a really enlightened approach to leadership and to what they were trying to do and accomplish. And so when I joined, yes, a little over 300 people, very small, but you knew everyone's name, definitely a family feel to it. But there were a couple core principles that were there from the start, always, and that were a part of ownership philosophy. Now, us becoming employee-owned came later, but at the start, there was always a couple of things, and one was that went hand in hand. Full participation in continuous improvement. Yeah, everyone's really trying to be all in. Really, full trust for the individual. No time clocks. No one's punching in and out. We believe in trusting, and in general, that's paid well for us over the years. And the two things that also go with it, which are a part of our total rewards, included profit sharing. So we pay annual profit sharing to every associate at the same percentage of their salary every year. And from the first year that they turned a profit in the 70s. And for Dick, that was just natural, is that, hey, we're making profits.
We're working together on this.
Why wouldn't you share that with the people that helped earn it? Yeah. And then no layoff philosophy. So we don't consider people as any other asset on the balance sheet. So we will not lay people off to protect short-term profits. It's just not the way we believe. And we don't think it honestly.
Does that hold back your growth sometimes when you're like, let's not overextend? Because layoffs are usually a byproduct of overextension.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's definitely waves I'd say we've missed, and we're conservative and long-term in nature. But, I think for us, it's steady progress. And when we benchmark ourselves against other companies in the industry, our growth rates hold up. And so we feel good about that. And it's just, I think about 2008 and 2009 is a great example. So, through the mid-2000s, pretty consistent growth, very strong growth. And then you had that big correction. And, I had been there for a long time. And so people just assume things like a no layoff philosophy. Oh, that's just baked in. Yeah. But then you realize there's a lot of new people around who have been through layoffs, and they're not as comfortable, and they don't believe you until it happens. So 2009 hit, and we saw 50% revenue drop quarter over quarter, and we had maybe 100 plus more production associates than we needed for what we needed. But 2009 was one of my favorite years at the company, and there's a couple of reasons for that. And one, we all pulled together. Yeah. We had people mowing lawns, painting, pulled a lot of that work just inside. Community, right? Just rallying together. Yeah. We spent more in R&D that year than we did the year before, and we could do that. Yeah. Because the balance to not being able to maybe overextend and maybe miss a bit of a growth curve is that we were retrenching. Really stable. When 2010 happened, we had all of our trained workforce. We had brand new products ready to go. We had everyone 100% behind the mission, and so we killed it coming out of that.
Well, we've seen that mistake be done during COVID with the airlines. Yeah. Where they just laid everybody off because we're not working. But then when you start back up, all those people you laid off got other jobs.
Yeah, they're not coming back.
They're not coming back. Like now you got to hire, a third of your workforce with no experience. Right. And that's a tough curve.
Yeah, so we just think it's it feels good to do, but it isn't fully altruistic, right? It's protectionism. We're long-term capitalists, right? And so we think these things go hand in hand, and that people, if they don't have to look over their shoulders and if you're working in industry, we have a cycle, right? And it's a cyclical economy. And so there's going to be good times and there's going to be bad times. And you want everyone given their full effort the whole way through. And you don't get that if they're afraid of losing their jobs.
Awesome. Well, this is a good time to take the break here for our commercials. We'll be back from right away here with Aaron Brandt from Hypertherm. And thank you to the sponsors. Make sure you listen, and we'll be right back after this message.
The CWB Association is new and improved and focused on you. We offer a free membership with lots of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. We are committed to educating, informing, and connecting our workforce. Gain access to your free digital publication of the Weld magazine, free online training, conferences, and lots of giveaways. Reach out to your local CWB Association chapter today to connect with other welding professionals and share welding as a trade in your community. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Join today and learn more at cwbassociation.org.
And we are back here on the CWB Association podcast. We are here in sunny Orlando, Florida for Fabtech 2024. Back with Aaron here from Hypertherm, who's the COO and future CEO. I believe you're in the succession line.
That's right. Yeah, I'll be Evan Smith, our current CEO, is retiring the end of the year, and I'll be moving in the CEO seat in January.
So let's talk about a little bit about your skill set, because I'm curious, right? Because it's not seen that often where someone can start at a junior position and end up kind of at the top, right? During that journey, and I'm drawing from my life experience, there's a lot of skills you got to pick up that they're not from college, they're not from, no one's coming to necessarily sit you down and say you need to learn these things to move up. There's a lot of like mentorship or looking about what's going on in your corporate culture. For yourself, how's that journey? Like, what skills have you had to learn from a mechanical engineer to becoming corporate, where now it's, having to worry about P&Ls and projections and budgets? How's that curve been for you?
Yeah, it's, what's been good is that I've been in roles where I could always ask like the third and fourth question that are sort of related to what I'm doing, but not completely around, well, what does that really do to the profit and loss? And why are we worried about inventory levels? And what does that really mean? But, the skill sets of math, science, for me, then mixed with, just a love of people. And I'm an introvert actually. So, for me, having to be out.
That just means you love good people.
Well, yeah, exactly. You need the recharge time, but, the leadership skills were the first to come, to really build upon and really understanding that it isn't about your success, but really inspiring the success of others. And that's sort of my general MO as a leader, is servant leadership. So just how do I enable great teams to do great work, and how can I make that happen? And hopefully show some of the great ways to get there, but then also be supportive and encouraging and empowering as well. And so I'm not a micromanager, don't want to do that. That sounds really exhausting and tiring, honestly. So picking up the leadership skills early was important. And then over time, as I was just sitting on a steering team, we're organized, the way we're organized, we're a matrix organization, and we've got regional teams, which are sales, service, logistics, and functional teams like HR. But our business units, which are kind of our primary axis, are built to have engineering, operations, and marketing all co-located, focused on a customer segment. Because we think having great products is a full team sport, not an engineering job. So I was already surrounded with marketing, with finance, with operations, and just loving it all and learning just as much as I could. And I did have to round out with a little bit of coursework, some finance courses, some marketing courses, and there's so much great exec ed out there now. You can really do that, even not just going to a business school, but just picking it up online.
Well, even through wonderful associations that offer leadership courses.
Yeah, I can imagine CWB is a great one to look up to, and a website on the banner behind me. So it was rounding that stuff out for sure. But and then a lot of it, especially moving in the general manager role, and being on in the work and on the work. So if someone wants to get into sort of more senior leadership, if you can get connected to the P&L in your organization and be in that and be part of the responsibility of making that happen.
And kind of understand the connection with that, what you do today might affect that team tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
And that revenue is great, but revenue, you don't live off revenue, you live off profits and cash. Yeah. And that journey from the sales you make to turning it into profit to then turning into cash is one that has a lot of chain steps that all have to work. And so that was a lot of the skill set. I had the math aptitude for it, but really, and I'm not a finance expert, but which is why we have a fantastic CFO. But it's good to be able to speak the language and know it as an operator. And you're trying to build a business, and then you're learning just enough of what it takes to have the team do great work.
Well, I know that's a gap that in the welding world we have to confront often, is the gap between language of, say, like the welder to the fabricator to the engineer to the planner to the buyer, and everyone kind of just talks to the level above and below. You get one step too far, and it's a different language,
right?
And that makes business hard, right? It does, because you want everyone to kind of be able to understand, at least on some level, what the decisions are happening for, right?
Yeah, if people at any level in the org don't know what their decisions and how they impact the broader company, then it's really opaque to them, right? And I think a lot of communication inside an organization has to be about sort of making it as transparent as possible to say, hey, this is a reason we're being so aggressive on inventory controls here, and why we're trying to do just in time, and why why it's so important, these metrics and driving, and this is what it enables for us in terms of cash strength. And that lets us invest when we see an opportunity and go after it. And then people start making the connections. Yeah. And, you can't spend enough time having those conversations. Because if someone feels that, I'm an assembler and I'm just doing my job and I'm working in the third cell of this line, and that's all I do. And we don't want that. We want people coming in with their brains fully on and engaged and not turning them off when they come in the door. Not only do they do better work in what they're doing, but they're the ones, the majority of what we find to either improve automation or improve productivity
the
are
problem
coming
solvers
from the front line problem solvers. And it's amazing what they do. Some of my favorite parts of the day are when you're doing a walk around, and we've got these things called CIA boards, continuous improvement activity boards. And, a frontline associate will be, up there talking about the metrics, talking about the impact, and you just see just see the passion and
and that connection.
It's so good. And even when we acquired OMAX WaterJets in 2019, and bring them into the family, and then some of these same things we're introducing
and that's
there.
another learning curve, right?
Yeah, that was our largest acquisition to date, and they're headquartered in Kent, Washington, just south of Seattle, and it's a very similar culture to us. Obviously we look at culture very closely when we're looking at acquisitions, and founder led. John Chung and John Olson founded OMAX, and just a great group of people, and so they, it's just been so fun watching us bring some learnings to them, but also so much learning that they brought to us as well.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I have always known about Hypertherm since the beginning of my career in welding is their dedication to being involved in kind of halo projects, supporting programs for schools, high schools, Sparking Arcs, or what was the program where you give away Hypertherm plasmas for schools? That was around for years. I think it still is.
I think it is, yes.
Yeah, I get an email. You're involved in a lot of community programs, a lot of associations. You're at conferences. There's a real investment in the brand, like a strong investment in the brand.
Yeah.
And I was just talking this morning at a presentation. Some people say that your investment on marketing should be up to 30% of your total revenue, which I think is wild to think of a number like that. But that's that might be an extreme, but it is important to establish a brand, and a brand that's not necessarily tied to just the function of your product.
That's right.
Right? A brand that's tied to also your function within society. And I think that Hypertherm works on that and is actively involved in doing things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we talked a little bit earlier about community impact and how critical that is, because we're all members of a community. Communities give businesses license to operate. And, that's something our founder learned early on. Was the first time he went to apply for a permit to expand the building, realized I've never talked to anyone in this town about this before. And so it's going to be a different reception than, you're out there in the community, you're getting involved. So all of, a lot of our associates, all of them get community service time, paid time off. To go volunteer in whatever volunteer activity they
It doesn't have to be in the steelworking world.
Doesn't have to be. No. It can be part of your kids, a trip to a museum.
Yeah,
right.
Selling cookies.
Exactly. Yeah. Go coach athletics team, and that's good. It makes our associates feel super energized and engaged. It gets our name out there in the community, and we know that if we give back to the community give back to us. Like I said, these things are all circular, right? You do these good things, and then good things happen. And so a lot of brand build as well. As you know, authenticity is so important. Right? You can do all you want you can market message all you want, but if people don't associate that with your brand, they're not going to believe it.
They're not going
to reject it. So it's got to be coming from a real place and for a real purpose. And so for us is just a natural, normal, the right way to do business is to be involved in the community. And then giving back to colleges and universities. I mean, a lot of us draw that connection to, if you have people using your equipment in colleges, then
you're branded. That's what they think of.
For sure. And that's important.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, we know that a good, healthy, strong North American economy.
They need the equipment.
You need the equipment, and then you need the people to be joining it, and then you need people to be, manufacturing over the years has not had the best branding, right? The 4 Ds, dirty, dark, dangerous, right? Yeah. Dull. And those of us who have been in it for decades now,
it's awesome.
It is awesome. Or North American manufacturing, hearing it may be coming back. It never left. And so the more you can inspire people to get into it, it just brings the whole ecosystem up and makes us all better. So
yeah. Now, what about your support? Like on the like you got Ray Ripple, you got all these amazing people that you help support with their interactions out in society. Is that kind of what does that fall under in the window of Hypertherm?
Yeah. I mean, it's the collaboration with Ray is fantastic. It's just incredibly impressive what she does. She's here at the show this week.
We're interviewing her, I think, Wednesday. Yeah.
Yep.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, she's doing a really cool project with a truck hood right now. I mean, for us, it's just a great way to reach more people, and we're
youth,
and I think Ray's incredibly inspiring. First of all, so we're so proud to have our brand associated with her.
Yeah,
and just another great example of someone who's made a fantastic career and place for herself in this industry, and just is so inspired to give back. And so to be associated with that is just fantastic. And then you can see the inspiration she gives to young people looking to join up of any gender, but in particular attracting more women into
which is sorely needed.
Absolutely. You see it getting better every year. I mean, you think about Fabtech 10, 15 years ago, but we've got more to go, and it just makes us stronger the more people we get under the tent.
That's awesome. You know, when you're looking at the getting into the community piece, I remember teaching at the college, and we got a Hypertherm machine for the students to use from a sales rep basically for free. He just came and dropped it off and said, let the students use it. And, you know, and he took the time to show the students how the consumables work and what they were called, and having the rep really be knowledgeable. And I'm in the middle of nowhere in Canada. I live in Regina, Saskatchewan, which is kind of out in the boonies. And we had that support. Not a lot of companies take the time to have those support partners in key locations or even unkey locations.
Yep.
You know, how important is it for Hypertherm to have that reach?
Yeah, we're our, especially on the handheld product side, but in general, we've got over 3,000 distribution partners globally, and that's our success, right? Is our partner success. And so it's not just the Hypertherm associates out in the field, and certainly in North America, we've got an incredible team of distribution sales managers and OEM sales managers, people that are working directly with end users on big projects, and that's the front face of Hypertherm. That's what makes us successful. And then certainly for partners, making sure we're selecting the best partners we can, working with one, training them up, making them successful. And you learn early on that ultimately you can have the best product in the world, and if you don't have the full chain in place from where you're building your product all the way to the end user, and they're getting trained and supported with a great experience, it doesn't matter how good your product is.
Well, and you guys are doing a lot of new things all the time. I'd imagine not everything works, right? Like, some products are awesome. I remember, I still haven't tried the gouging curve tip.
Yep.
You know what I mean? When that came out, I was like, how does that even work?
Flush cut.
Right. How do you make a plasma change direction, like, without just blowing out
We can get technical if you like.
Yeah. But, like, having those experimental products shows a commitment to R&D that you don't see from a lot of companies. You guys just came out with the one-piece end, right? The consumable switch out now, where it's just like a quick one-to-one. I mean, that kind of threw me off. I hadn't seen that before. Immediately speculative. I'm like, is that better? Is that worse? But obviously, R&D went into this.
For sure.
Right? So as you look to, as a leader, and you're moving into like the big leader, the big chair, right? How are you going to make sure that you keep that flavor of, I guess, like exploration within the industry, to keep looking for that new cool thing that may or may not work, but you got to try?
Yeah. And there's a couple, it's so important, right? And there's a couple key principles that are sort of, internalized so much into our organization and aren't going to go anywhere. One is, to always, be fully centered in solving a customer problem, right? And they're there, and how can you make it better for them? And it can always get better, and it can always be made better. So just that hunger and an appetite to obsolete yourself, because again, the industry is going to move, technology is going to change. It's changing rapidly right now, and people are coming, with new great ideas and new concepts, and so we want to be the ones to obsolete ourselves. And so having that heavy commitment, we tend to invest about 7%, 5 to 7% on average. It varies. We're pretty steady, so we tend to invest through the cycle, either way in our R&D investment. And so that's not going to change. And it's still always going to be, we love tech, but it's always going to be grounded in trying to solve a customer problem. So how do we make this cut better? How do we improve the outcomes for the end user? How do we make this easier to install and service? I mean, the sync systems that you mentioned, the cartridge, sort of the one-piece swap out, the number one reason people would get either poor life or just damage their parts or get a poor cut,
improperly putting the lip pieces
putting
together.
the consumables together. And so that was one where it's really hard and was a challenge to say, okay, if we want to make it easier for them, and the ideal was it's just only one consumable and not 8. How do you do that in a way that is cost effective? That's actually lower. In most cases, it lowers the operating cost to the end user, makes it easier for them to do, obviously. And then, ultimately have a lower environmental footprint as well.
Yeah.
And so all of those metrics were stacked up against that. And it took quite a few years of R&D to figure that out, and a lot of CapEx investment to do it as well, because it's a fully automated assembly line for that.
Right.
But super proud of that. And so that, as we look to the future, it's that type of, renewal, reinvestment, pushing the technology forward. We're a multi-technology organization as well. Plasma and WaterJet today will continue to expand, making sure that whatever the tech is that's involved in industrial cutting and really setting manufacturers up for success, we want to be in there and driving it forward.
Well, that was going to be my next question. OMAX was a big step, right? You brought in a big mover, big tables, big equipment, heavy stuff. And, Hypertherm, previously I'd always thought of as the machine that you would attach to somebody else's system.
That's right.
Right? You would bring in the Hypertherm to hook it up to the gantry of X, right? And you'd have a system. OMAX was your first kind of like what we saw from the outside as a move into identifying that space for yourself. Now, is there more growth in those sectors of just cutting? Is there going to be that day where it's going to be Hypertherm welding? Is it going to be Hypertherm? I don't know. Like, there's things, right?
We look pretty, as in terms of what we consider, we look pretty expansively, and we're an industrial cutting solutions company, right? Yeah. And we're looking at total value chain and looking at up and down and saying, okay, where could we uniquely provide value that's differentiated, it's technology based. We manufacture in the U.S. predominantly. We're not, going to go around the world seeking low cost, manufacturing to build our products. So we need to make sure that we've got differentiation and a reason to be there and not just be a me too. So for all, whether it's a different cutting technology or a different shaping technology along the value stream, for us, it's more about, okay, well, can we provide value there and could we drive it? So software that we provide works for many other providers other than just ourselves. In WaterJet, we had done an initial acquisition in 2014, I believe, of AccuStream, which made WaterJet pumps and consumables, and very much similar to the plasma side, where it was more supply to machine tool builders. And there we found, it was great to bring that into the fold, but ultimately for WaterJet, we found that the value we could bring was more around where the software and hardware were intersecting, and OMAX was a great brand and was also available. So it was a fantastic opportunity for us to step in there. But on the plasma side, for example, there we're fully committed to our model that we have today, which is selling through partners, selling through distribution. It's a broad expansive reach of applications that plasma serves, and that's not something that we'd ever want to do ourselves. So there we're stronger with partners. WaterJet, we have a lot of partners on the WaterJet side as well, but we tend to sell the full integrated platform, which is the difference. So for the future, there's a lot of things we're thinking about and considering, both internally in terms of what we're investing in, and I can assure you we're investing quite heavily, continue to in R&D to drive the tech forward. We see great growth potential for both plasma and WaterJet in the future. And then a lot of new exciting applications. You'll see a lot of new robotic 3D applications in particular as well that we're super excited about. And then beyond that, we've got some things we're looking at.
You got your ears on the street.
We're looking at what we can do. Absolutely.
What about lasers? That's going to be the next question, because when you talk about the progression of cutting technologies, it's almost like everyone's got a plasma. If you don't have a plasma table now, for sure, at this point, are you even a business? Right? Like, are you even anything? It's a
very mature market,
right? And then you get into the WaterJets. Well, now this is a bigger investment. There's more work involved. And lasers kind of coming in hard at all levels, right? But it's almost I'm seeing laser as a lower price point of WaterJets in some regards.
In some applications, absolutely.
Right? Because you don't have a water pump, you don't have, shots, you don't have all these other pieces that you got to include. There's also their issues, but are you going to, is there a push into laser world for you guys?
Yeah, we're absolutely looking at opportunities and figuring out, again, it's every technology has its fit. And like I said, I started my career in laser, and so it's there. It's there in my brain. And I remember, early on, one of my first customer visits was to a John Deere factory in Dubuque, Iowa, and we were installing some new plasma systems there. So this was back in 1999. And the operations manager at the time said, hey, this is great. We're putting this in there, but plasma's pretty mature. And
what's next?
We're probably going to go all with laser from this point forward. And at the time, 1999, I just joined the company thinking, what
laser are you using?
What industry did I just get in? And I think with everything, with every technology, it has a hype cycle it goes through, and then it settles in. And certainly areas where it's going to have rapid adoption, and then the technologies find their place. Oxy-fuel still is an amazing footprint brought in the industry. So with plasma, we're very with laser in particular, there are segments where it's got very strong dominant strength and is the right technology for the job. Thinner materials, very high volume. Obviously, you can go thicker now with fiber laser tech.
Right.
And a lot of great. It's great to see the technology driving forward, and we've actually seen that for some years now. In Asia, in particular, there was a lot of early adoption of fiber laser, and so we've seen the curve happen there, and still have a fantastic footprint in plasma to this day. Similarly with WaterJet, there are certain applications where WaterJet's just the right tool for the job.
It is, yeah, and there's still lots of dangers with laser that haven't been quite figured out.
Yeah, and I think there's a danger. I think with fiber laser with eye safety, where if you have to worry about enclosures and worry about protection as well. I think there are cases where it's multi-material or it's material that's not perfect, so not the same size. If you have like a casting or an extrusion, like an I-beam, you can run into trouble. Rusty plates, or if you're in a shipyard, for example, laser will struggle with that.
Right.
But at the same time, and also with laser, we talked about operating cost, high pressure nitrogen. You go through quite a bit of it. I think the gas distributors are happy in those situations, but it does add to the operating cost. So that being said, there's absolutely some shift happening in industry right now, and quite a bit of fiber laser adoption, and we see that.
You said the hype cycle. It's hype right now. Laser's a hype word right now.
And if you've got a full factory, and we see this with a lot of our strategic end users, where they've got a full factory of a lot of great plasma cutting tables, their next purchase is likely going to be a fiber laser table.
Yeah.
And we've seen that cycle play out, and then usually the purchase after that is a plasma. So, we're happy. Definitely we're always positioned to figure out where we can grow and continue to drive forward. We see lots of room, like I said, on XY tables for plasma, but a lot more robotic and 3D applications where plasma we're actually converting laser to plasma in those applications. Aluminum castings is a fantastic example of that, where plasma doesn't care if the geometry is not too close, or your standoff heights are changing. It doesn't mind if the thickness is changing rapidly. It doesn't mind if the part's a little bit different from one to the other. And highly reflective materials like aluminum, which a lot of these are made out of, it does a great job. So that's an example of an application where you see the technology shifting in a different direction.
Now, you brought up the Asian markets. We're here at Fabtech, where, as you've seen over the years of Fabtech, the floor has changed considerally. Yeah.
I see some familiar faces from Shanghai Essen shows.
Yeah, right. So, how does a community-involved, holistic company that treasures its employees and has these wonderful plans compete in the cutthroat plasma world? Because there is competition from everywhere now, all kinds, right? And how do you stay on top of that, stay in front of it, or navigate within it?
Yeah, it's not easy. But there's a couple things I think that where we try to position ourselves and offer a differentiation to customers, and it's never going to be price.
Yeah.
Right. And you just have to realize that if it gets cutthroat, and even cutthroat with U.S. suppliers, there's a place that you just can't go. So you have to have a differentiated product as much as you can, and that's why the heavy R&D investment to continue to push it forward. So you've got to, if you want to have a premium brand position, you better be offering a great value proposition. And I think that's the other important part, especially on the plasma side, but definitely on the OMAX WaterJet side as well, is that you've got a great customer experience you're selling. So whether that's with our fantastic partners on the plasma side or more directly with the OMAX products, because when you buy a piece of capital equipment, you're buying a relationship with the supplier. You're not buying a product. You're buying a relationship. Because as you know, these things...
they require work, consumables.
They require maintenance. They require support. They require consumables. Things are going to break. We don't want them to. We want it to be as reliable as possible, but there's always something.
It's industry,
and you need someone that is going to be there and trust to support, and that's what we offer, and that's how we're going to continue to stake our position. I think also people want to know that they're having a broader impact as part of, U.S., Canadian, Mexican, broader North American manufacturing, that we are supporting our ecosystem and driving. Yeah. So I think there's that bias in the Americas to want to buy from American. And that's actually true anywhere in the world. Everyone would love to buy local, and that's great. And so if we can buy something that's price competitive, has a great value proposition, and we feel like the total cost of ownership of what we offer across all of our products is going to be lower than what you can get, even if the upfront list price is a little higher. Because you're going to get lower operating costs, but when something goes wrong, we're going to be there, and I think that's what we can definitely stand behind.
And then for the last couple questions, we're getting to the end of the interview. For yourself, into the roles you're moving into, what you've stepped up through, what would you be able to give a fresh Hypertherm employee tomorrow? First day on the job, Aaron's coming down. Hi, how's it going? And he says, how do I get in your chair? You said, you asked those questions, right? And they're asking you these questions now. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I did just get asked this question. So when we have new hires join us, we do a 3-day cultural immersion, and they get to meet all the senior management team and do a Q&A with us and ask questions. And so often it is that question. It's, hey, I see you've navigated this. How did you do that? How can I do that? I start with, first and foremost, my role and the executive team's role, every leader's role at Hypertherm and every associate's role is to make our company as strong as we can and really drive it forward, because growth creates opportunity. And growth isn't a number, or I'm not trying to put an award on the wall or brag about a quarterly revenue figure. I don't care about that. I care about growth because it creates dynamic environment that's exciting to be in. It's engaging to be in, and it creates opportunity and movement. And so for when someone's talking to me, I say, hey, first and foremost, we're going to do everything we can to keep this organization strong and healthy. So I want you to stay. I want you to have the same opportunities I did. And I want one of you I'm talking to right now to be taking over from either me or my successor, in whatever order that comes. And, the way you do that is, again, just work so hard in the role that you're in, really show that you're committed, very dynamic, but always be ready to learn, contribute, to ask questions, to be engaged, and accept that you don't know everything. Be willing to take a lateral move, if you can, and find your way to learn as much about the total organization as you possibly can, and don't be afraid to ask questions and seek people out, including myself. We don't have any offices in our buildings. It's all open office. Okay. I don't have an office.
I just imagine people walking around in a field, but no.
Yeah, it's not quite that. When our founder built the buildings, because our main manufacturing in the Northeast is purpose-built, with manufacturing and offices always co-located, and he didn't even want to have walls. Turns out you have to have walls for safety. But that whole idea of there's no separation between anyone, there's no,
line of sight,
as little hierarchy as possible, and that creates access. And so it's creating growth, inspiring people and getting them engaged in the culture, and then giving access and transparency so they know they can figure it out.
Awesome. Yeah. Last question. What's the goal for Fabtech? You came here, you get the teams together, everyone has their huddles for the last month talking about Fabtech. You got the booths, you got the people. What are you looking to come out of this show in Orlando with? Is there a special product being unveiled, or is there something moving, or what was the goal?
Yeah, we have a bunch of new products this year, as we usually do. The big ones, we've got 2 new plasma products on display. The XPR 460 which is the new flagship, the highest level of oxygen cutting that we've ever offered. Cuts thicker and faster. I worked on an original 400 amp system like 2 generations ago. This makes me look like I had no idea what I was doing. So it's so fantastic to see, and it's that obsoleting ourselves, right?
Yeah.
The PowerMax 45 sync is our the highest selling plasma unit in the industry. PowerMax 45 XP, and now the sync, and so that's a generation.
And the sync seems to be hitting it off.
It is.
It's the ease of use is something that I hear about lots.
Yeah, I think there's for many, once they've tried it, then they're blown away. And I think when people get over there, it's a change, right? And people look at it, and there's some questions around. Okay, is this really in my best interest? And is this really going to be helpful for me? And I think those that have tried it realize, hey, these things last a lot longer, getting more life, so much easier to use, and the operators won't let people take it out of their hands. So that's how we knew we had a winner, was when we did beta field trials with operators.
And they're like, this is mine now.
Yeah. We've got some great stuff on the WaterJet side as well. Our OMAX, which is the high-end flagship there, has a couple new features and offerings there. We've got a dual carriage capability, some new software features that are on display. And so, yeah, I mean, we've got the lead goals and the sales goals and all of those things, but I think it's really just getting people exposed to the brand new products, understanding that, what we're coming with, we're continuing to drive the state of the art of technology for both plasma and WaterJet forward. And we're trying to be as much of a supporting, engaging, and driving force in the industry as we can. So, So if we deliver that message, then we've had a successful show.
So how do the listeners find out about their local Hypertherm?
Yeah, so you can go to hypertherm.com is a great way, and you'll find out, or if you've got a local distributor nearby, got some welding distributor, or many of our OEMs that sell cutting products. If you're looking for a robotic machine or an XY cutting table, you'll find us online all over the place. But hypertherm.com is a great starting place.
Good.
And then you'll click on your region, and then you'll get access to the partner network and all the information about our products.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. This has been really insightful.
Max, this was a blast.
I'm waiting to get hired at Hypertherm, but no one's offered me a job yet. But I think you're vacating a position soon, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk.
But yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And for the people following along online and on the podcast, we're doing a number of shows this week, so make sure you catch all the Fabtech specials. We got great guests all week. Hopefully my voice will hold up. As you know, every Fabtech by the last podcast, I'm barely understandable. I'm holding on slow. They're not bad today. But keep downloading, sharing, and commenting. And make sure you send us fan mail on the new feature on our Buzzsprout feed. Thank you, and then I'll see you at the next episode.
We hope you enjoyed the show.